The separation of powers becomes relevant here. There's a great deal of anger in the country, much of it justified, about past practices, and a number of people can legitimately be criticized. There is also a concern that there may have been things done for which there should be some action. Civil recoveries. In some cases, people have been talking about prosecution, although I do not mean to imply that anyone here faces that. The role of the Congress, however, is different. We are not the executive branch with enforcement powers. We are not the Securities and Exchange Commission or the control of the currency. We are not ourselves regulated. We formulate regulatory policy. I believe our major function and the purpose of this hearing is to help formulate policy going forward. Understanding what happened, why it happened, what didn't happen, those are essential elements of formulating policy going forward. And so, yes, this hearing will focus on what had happened. But that's in the context, I believe, given our legislative function, of trying to devise what we do going forward. Now, we have this dilemma. Because I believe of an absence of sensible regulation, not deregulation, but non-regulation, a series of new financial activities, and in some cases entities, grew up in our country. And those activities did a lot of good. But as will happen when you have a total absence of regulation, they also did some harm. More harm than almost anybody had anticipated. In consequence, we are now in a very seriously we're in a serious negative economic situation. We have two goals. One is to adopt rules that will make it much less likely that we will have a repeat of this. And I think that's the easier job intellectually, and I even think politically, because of the view in the country. But we have to get out from under where we now are. And here's the dilemma. There is in the country a great deal of anger about the financial institutions, including those represented here. There's anger about us, there's anger about the executive branch, there's a great deal of anger. We have this dilemma. It is essential, if we are to reverse the economic negativism that we now confront, that we, other things, get the system of extending credit back into its fullest operation. I suppose theoretically you could junk the current system and start a whole new one. The amount of time that would take and effort would obviously make that totally impractical. We have no option, if we are to get credit flowing again in this country, other than to work with the existing institutions. Not every institution as it was originally constituted, but with the existing institutions. And the problem is that there's a great deal of anger at the institutions, and it is impossible to get the credit system working again without doing some things that will be seen to benefit the institutions. I've said this is the opposite of that terrible problem in warfare of collateral damage, when innocent people are injured in the course of trying to attain a military objective. One of the problems we have, gentlemen, is that you are the recipients of collateral benefit. That is, in an effort to get the credit system functioning, things will be done that will be to the benefit of the institutions over which you preside, because there is no alternative. But you need to understand, as I think many of you do, how angry that makes people. And in the interest of getting the system working again, I urge you strongly to cooperate with us, not grudgingly, not doing the minimum, but understanding that there is a substantial public anger, and alleviating that public anger, not with mumbo-jumbo, but with reality, is essential if we're going to have the support in the country to take the right steps. I admired much of Secretary Paulson's tenure, but beginning last September, when he asked us for the $700 billion authorization, and I raised the compensation issue, he was very resistant. And I must tell you that he blamed you to some extent, not you individually, but as a profession. He said, if we put strict compensation restrictions on, people won't cooperate. I hope that's not true. I hope the argument that people would put their own economic self-interest in the narrow term ahead of an unnecessary program to get the country back isn't the case. We need to look at that. We need to talk about it. I think that some of you have been laggard in understanding that. I urge you going forward to be ungrudgingly cooperative and understand that these are extraordinary times. We are going to be taking and have been taking extraordinary measures which will be to the benefit of some of the institutions, all the institutions of which you preside. There has to be on the sense of the American people that you understand their anger, their frustration, and that you willingly cooperate and, in fact, are willing to make some sacrifices so that we can get this whole thing working.